Welcome to my retro reviews, films from the 1980s, films that I've been dying to talk to you about for ages, and from what I hear from the feedback below, people are enjoying this, so as long as people are craving more and more of these 80s films that you might not be aware of or haven't seen for the first time or want to revisit, I'm here to tell you what you should watch. I'm not going to force you to watch them, but they meant something to me, and hopefully you might get some enjoyment out of them. So today I'll be talking about one of my favorite movies from 1981 and one of my favorite occasional tipples, Southern Comfort. Now, if Southern Comfort has a vague air of familiarity to you, yes, it is the spiritual successor to Deliverance, which is pretty much highlighted in the film's poster campaign as well. And it's really funny because if you remember that film from 1973 with Burt Reynolds and Jon Voight, man, where the hell were these National Guard guys at that time? Because that could have been a really epic crossover. But hey, it is what it is. And without further ado, let us talk about the cast of this movie because they are bloody impressive. So you've got Keith Carradine as Spencer, Powers Booth, a really imposing figure of a man who plays Hardin, and pretty much like the title of his name, he's a real hard dude. You don't mess with this guy at all. He will not hesitate to pull a knife on you if you get on the wrong side of him. And you got Fred Ward. Wow, that man with a face that only his own mother could probably love. He plays Reese, one of the group's douchebags. And you have Lewis Smith as Stucky, and I'll be talking about him a little later on. You got T.K. Carter, you got Franklin Seals, and Brian James as the Trapper.
Mon pas fait rien. Son of a bitch, I said.
He's an interesting guy to say the least. You don't know if he's on the side of good or bad. Yeah, an interesting fellow, that's all I've got to say. So Southern Comfort is set in 1973, where a group of National Guardsmen are on a weekend training exercise. The twist of which is that they have to use blanks only, not live ammunition. So obviously part of the group... Oh my God, I'm choking up here with emotion. So very much from the offset, Hardin and Spencer form this undeniable, unbreakable bromance as they go along their way, trekking the Bayou County. And the whole troop is led by Lamont's character of Casper. And he's not quite sure where they're going, so why would you have a leader with not that much confidence in his abilities to lead your platoon through uncharted swampland? Now, the point of this military weekend exercise for our National Guard boys is that when they get to their final destination, there'll be ladies of the night waiting for them, as arranged by Reese. Yep, what can I say about Fred Ward? Don't trust that face. And much debauchery. So, yeah, I wonder how that works out in the end. So eventually, as they're going along their ways, they discover a camp with hanging dead fish, not the sort of invite for dinner that you want, but the locals aren't there. So one of the group decides to commandeer a canoe so they can get from point A to point B, but leaving a note for the locals that the boats will be returned. As they're journeying up to their next destination point, the locals do reappear from the bushes, at which point Stucky, as played by Lewis Smith, decides to unload blank ammunition at them. Unfortunately, what happens then is that their platoon leader, played by the great Peter Coyote, is shot in the head in really graphic fashion. I may add at this point that the film is directed by Walter Hill. Now, you know him as the dude behind the 48-hour movies, The Warriors. He's a great filmmaker. Doesn't really make films anymore, but he's got a trademark violence and a certain aesthetic to his movies, so definitely he brings the shock value here. And what ensues is a really tense game of cat and mouse between the locals and these very inexperienced National Guardsmen, and it ends up with them meeting a trapper played by Brian James, as I mentioned earlier on. And that is a real cause for concern because one of the members of the group doesn't see the wood for the trees, doesn't like this guy from the offset, and because they believe that he killed one of their members. And it's a really interesting dynamic between what's immoral and what's moral. And I love where this part of the plot went. Also, there is a really horrific death for one of the members of the platoon, which was very much echoed in Rambo First Blood. in 1982. So I'm wondering when Ted Kotcheff, the director of that movie, have watched Southern Comfort and thought, oh, you know what? I'm going to use that for a set piece in my movie. It feels like they borrowed from this, and really Southern Comfort did set that standard for being in a hellish environment. Can you imagine going to your local travel agent in 1981 saying, oh, I fancy a trip to the Deep South, and you see that poster for Southern Comfort? I think you would have second thoughts about going, because I tell you what, when I saw that poster as a youngster, that used to scare the bejesus out of me, and even looking at it now, it still gives me the creeps. Now, speaking of the creeps, the third act of this movie, all I've got to say is it has got levels of Wicker Man that I haven't seen for a long time in a movie.
Murder! Murder! You'll all be guilty! And you're doing it for nothing!
I mean, seriously, it's just so tension-filled. You really do care about the characters of Hardin and Spencer. Are they going to make it out alive? How are they going to outsmart these local dwellers? Because they're obviously a lot more smarter than they appear to be. I'm not going to say any more about that. I would suggest you do watch Southern Comfort. It's a good, terrifying night in. I would even say you could watch this on Halloween as well, because it's not just a military drama. It's a drama about the horrors of war and what it does to people mentally and physically. So my hot dog rating out of 5 for Southern Comfort would be a 5 out of 5 hot dogs. Now, let me just explain my rating system quickly. If I rate a film 5 or less hot dogs, it doesn't mean to say that it might be exceeding your expectations or going beneath them, because at the end of the day, all film opinion is subjective. But as Southern Comfort is rarely talked about in the realm of classic 80s movies, I thought I'll bring it up today because there are some really great performances in the film. I think a real standout is Fred Ward as Reese, because he's just such a douchebag. You're almost on the point of liking him, but then you just want to hate his guts.
Otherwise, I'm going to turn your ass in.
I don't give a shit what you do. Quit fucking around and give him the rifle. Now.
But yeah, Fred Ward is a legendary dude, and I wish he would do more in the realm of films. He's just got that great face. But yeah, Keith Carradine, Powers Booth, they do lend as much as they can to their parts. There's really like across the board acting from everybody in this movie. Like I said, it is your spiritual successor to Deliverance. I would even suggest to watch Deliverance first, then watch this afterwards, because the two do go hand in hand. So thank you very much for watching my review today for Southern Comfort. Stick around because I've got some great 80s films coming up in the next few weeks.